Japan's ATLA developing hypersonic anti-ship missile.
Jungle.
For the Japanese hypersonic missile guidance, a combined guidance system for satellite and autonomous inertial navigation will be used. The latter is important in situations where satellites are disabled, and there is no doubt that the anti-satellite era awaits us. In addition, hypersonic missile launchers can be deployed not only on land, or potentially on ships, but also on board fighters. A modification of the Joint Strike Missile, or JSM jet missile, is being developed for the F-35, which is already being supplied to the Japan Air Self-Defense Force. And for the F-15J/DJ Eagle, which so far remains the main aircraft in the Japanese Air Force, the Long-Range Anti-Ship Missile, or LRASM modification, is intended. The use of different types of missiles gives an advantage to the attacking side. Missiles with different characteristics create an insurmountable load on enemy air defense systems. Of course, the 6th-generation Japanese fighter that is currently being developed as part of the FX project will also have the ability to carry hypersonic weapons on board. Hypersonic is a really promising topic. If Werner von Braun's V-2 ballistic missile appeared in Nazi Germany in 1939, we would now live in a different world. And the language of this video would be German. Due to its amazing speed, maneuvering, and the ability to change the flight altitude, the hypersonic object is practically inaccessible to air defense systems. But even if the enemy's radars are detected, a missile flying at a speed of Mach 5 to 10 is able to end the mission without hindrance and hit the target. After all, the enemy simply does not have enough time to capture and destroy the missile. Another advantage of hypersonic missiles is their effectiveness against different types of targets. For example, when attacking a destroyer or aircraft carrier, the rocket explodes not at the moment of contact with the sheathing of the ship, but its very interior. That is, the rocket literally pierces the stern or deck of the ship and explodes inside. The striking effect of such a hit is much higher. Therefore, to send a huge aircraft carrier to the bottom, one missile and a single hit are enough. If we consider that the number of the ship's crew of the aircraft-carrying cruiser is about 3,000 people, plus 2,000 people are part of the air wing, then the damage from such a hit will be catastrophic. And if we add the loss of equipment and aircraft to this, such a blow can be considered a knockout. At the same time, hypersonic weapons can be used against ground targets. The kinetic energy of the missile is enough to break through any obstacles and fortifications. This means that the enemy's underground facilities are under attack. Utility systems, bunkers, warehouses, command posts. Therefore, do not be confused by the word anti-ship in the specification of the Japanese Ministry of Defense. However, will Japanese engineers have enough experience and knowledge to create a dangerous weapon? After all, hypersonic is a completely new type of flight. There are completely different requirements for design, materials, and power plants. To create hypersonic lift, hypersonic missiles are designed very differently from traditional missiles. In a typical supersonic flight, the oncoming airflow raises the air temperature. The flow affects most of all the parts of the apparatus that meet the airflow. For example, at the speed of Mach 3, the leading edges of the wings, stabilizers, and keel, as well as other protruding parts of the aircraft, heat up to 330 degrees Celsius. But at a speed of Mach 5, the speed of the hypersonic flow increases. The high-speed flow at the points of the apparatus meeting the flow causes the gas to heat up to several thousand degrees, and this is a real test for the materials from which the missile is made. But besides this problem, Japanese engineers have to solve the problem with the power plant for their missile. We're talking about the development of two new engines at once. The task of the first unit is to accelerate the missile to a speed of Mach 5, and the second engine should pick up acceleration and provide a further set of speed up to Mach 10 and higher. The range of a rocket with such a power plant can exceed 1,000 kilometers. But if the creation of an accelerating ramjet engine is not a super task, the Japanese have no experience working on a scramjet engine. There are not many companies in the world that have such a background. All manufacturers keep key decisions of scramjet efficiency a secret. Perhaps now the Japanese are engaged in the selection of fuel structures. After all, the task of the scramjet engine is not only to accelerate the object to crazy speeds, but also to ensure the maneuvering of the rocket without losing speed. Maneuverability could be a key advantage of hypersonic weapons as countries learn to deal with them. and this will happen sooner or later. Reliable and fast anti-missile systems will appear soon, and they will be able to catch up with even the fastest missiles. And then, maneuverability will come to the fore. For example, the Russians use random number generator flight control systems. This scheme works like this. The entire path of the missile from launch to target is broken into small segments, and for each segment, its own trajectory is randomly selected, not in advance, but at the beginning of each new segment of the path. Incredible! The randomness in this case is not random, but absolutely chaotic. That is, there is no logic in it, so that the artificial intelligence of the enemy's air defense could not figure it out. After all, it is impossible to guess the chaos. We're confident that Japan will have no problems creating a management system. However, the rest of the technical tasks seems to be very difficult. Time will tell, but the question arises, why hasn't Japan thought about hypersonic anti-ship missiles before? After all, the country has two territorial disputes with neighboring superpowers, Russia and China. The problem with Russia has a long history. There has been no peace agreement between Japan and Russia since 1945. A unique situation is emerging when countries are not friends, but they're not at war either. It's hard to call it stability, is it? We should recall that after World War II, the entire chain of the Kuril Islands became part of the Soviet Union. Japan considers this state of affairs to be inconsistent with international law. Japan did not attack the USSR even when it was very difficult for the Soviets on the Western Front. Japan respected the Neutrality Pact of April 13, 1941, and did not help Hitler. However, after the surrender of Germany, the USSR immediately attacked Japan and took the islands. This fact is actively used by Japanese politicians in the political struggle within the country. In 1981, a holiday called Northern Territories Day even appeared, when thousands of rallies were held throughout Japan. Returning to the islands has become an important part of Japanese identity. The Kurils are an important strategic area. There are non-freezing straits that connect the Sea of Okhotsk with the Pacific Ocean. Russian strategic submarines are on alert through the deep-water Kunashir Strait. By the way, their strategic goal is the US West Coast. The Kuril region is rich in fish and offshore oil and gas deposits. There is also a deposit of the rarest metal, rhenium, which is used in the production of electronics. However, the Russians use the island as an airbase for Russian Aerospace Forces fighters. In 2018, Su-35SO, which was relocated from the Khabarovsk territory, appeared on Iturup Island. In response, the Japanese had to deploy an electronic warfare unit on the island of Kyushu. The leaders of Japan are also worried about the Russian Pacific Fleet. In just 7 years, the fleet rose from the ruins and became the most combat-ready fleet of the Russian Federation. The Sea of Japan is teeming not only with fish, but also with Russian cruisers and destroyers. The situation is about the same in the East China Sea. In 2012, the aircraft carrier Liaoning of the Chinese Navy was commissioned. Operation of the Shandong aircraft carrier began in 2019. Chinese leaders do not even hide their intentions over the Senkaku Islands, which Japan now owns. But first, China plans to invade Taiwan. We're sure that this war will not be an easy walk for them, so Japan has a little time to develop its hypersonic program. And we will closely monitor the new weapons of all parties to the conflict.